By now you should be pretty comfortable with adding objects to your canvas, moving them around, scaling, nudging, those sorts of things. But let's take a look at how we edit a shape. And when I say edit a shape, I mean get into the shape and change the shape of the shape. So I'm going to start by hitting the letter R to select my rectangle tool, and I'm going to create a vertical, tall, skinny rectangle like this. The size doesn't matter too much. Now when you have that shape selected, you get your bounding box around the perimeter, and you've got your little handles that you can drag to scale it. But what you don't have are the control points that are creating the shape. We get there by either double-clicking on the shape or hitting return. Personally, I like to hit return, because that way I know I hit return and I'm going into edit mode. When you're done in edit mode, you can hit return again to leave. So it's a nice way of toggling in and out of editing mode. Now when you're in editing mode for a shape, you get a new inspector, or you get some new options on the inspector on the right-hand side. Options regarding the selected points and how you want to handle them. Let's start by looking at the different types of points. Now, by default, when you draw using the vector tool, which we'll talk about in the next lesson, you get straight points. Now, a square, or a rectangle in this case, is made up of straight points. We have all hard corners. Even if we click and drag a point to move it, it is still a straight, hard-edged corner. Now, mirrored, on the other hand, that is a curve. And you can set any point to be a mirrored or curved point. Mirrored is one of 4 different types of curved points, and they all really behave the same way. We have these handles, and we can click and drag on these control handles to change the curve. Now think of these handles as powerful little magnets. The further we drag them away, the more the shape is attracted to those little magnets. As we squeeze them together, it pulls the corner together. As we drag them further apart, it stretches that corner out. And as we drag the point, it automatically adjusts based on how I'm stretching that point and how I have my control point set. It can take quite a bit of time to become comfortable with these. These curves that are mathematically created based on points and control handles are called Bezier curves. Now let's take a look at the difference between mirrored, disconnected, and asymmetric points. Disconnected, unlike mirrored, will allow me to move one point without moving the other. With this, I can create a hard edge, a hard corner, which allows me to have 2 curves on either side of a sharp point. Mirrored, on the other hand, only created a smooth curve, because mirrored is symmetrically pulling away from the center point. Asymmetric, on the other hand, though similar to mirrored, will allow you to change the degree of the curve, sort of the magnetism of one side of the curve, without affecting the other, although the angle of the curve will be the same. Another way to toggle between a straight or a curved point is by double-clicking. When you double-click on a point, it goes to mirrored. Double-click again, it goes to straight. Double-click a curved point, it goes to straight. Double-click a straight point, it goes to mirrored. Essentially, it just toggles back and forth. An added bonus to using straight points is that there is a corner slider that will allow you to round the corner off without using any sort of Bezier curve manually. It is going to automatically create a nice smooth curve around that corner. You can do that for one point at a time. You can also click and drag to select several points. You can also use the Shift key to select several points or to deselect a point that's already selected. That will allow you to selectively round out points and exclude or include as many as you want at any time. You can also use Command A on the keyboard to select all if you're looking to manipulate the corners of the entire shape at once. The next thing you'll find is that these points can either be rounded or not rounded to whole pixels. If you're trying to be precise, you may want to round to full pixels, but if you're not trying to be precise and you're just trying to draw exactly the shape you're looking for, then you'll probably not want to round to nearest pixels. And then this button here will disable your editing capabilities of your cursor and just turn your cursor into a selection tool that will allow you to click and drag to select the points that you'd like to edit. Once you've done that, your cursor goes back to normal and you're able to grab and edit points once again. You can also select multiple points to move them together. I don't think I mentioned that before. Another thing to note before we get into creating our own shapes is when you move your cursor over a point on the line that doesn't have an existing control point, we can click and we can add a new control point where we can click and drag and change the shape. By default, it creates a mirrored curved point, but again, I can double click to change that back into a straight point. Now these control points, or anchor points as they're commonly referred to, are what it's all about. And we've just looked at how to edit and add with existing shapes. Now let's take a look at how to create a shape from scratch using the vector tool.